Good evening and welcome to the 17th Annual People's Choice Podcast Awards. It's coming to you via the New Media Production Studio in Coldwater, Michigan. First and foremost, happy International Podcast Day. As a way of introduction, my name is Todd Cochran. I'm a founder of the Podcast Awards, and I personally will celebrate 18 years of podcasting next week with over 2,100 episodes created and over 1,500 interviews alone. I've been inducted into the Podcast Hall of Fame, and I currently do 3 podcasts. My Genesis show, the Geek News Central podcast, which again started in October of 2004. The New Media Show at newmediashow.com, where you can get a PhD in podcasting if you listen or watch the show long enough. And Podcast Insider at podcastinsider.com. I'm also the founder of Blueberry Podcasting, a podcast service company. To give you a little background on the Podcast Awards, the first Podcast Awards event was happened at a national podcasting conference in the early days of 2005, and it was started in a way to honor podcasters globally with an emphasis on letting the audience nominate and pick the winners. There's no other podcast awards that uses this process where the audience members and a small token number of actual podcasters nominate and vote for the shows that are been basically participating. I have an awards committee that works with me to go through all of the process to make sure things are on the up and up. Voters are then randomly handpicked and weighted at the end to make sure that no single show has an advantage over another when it comes to the final voting. And my tech partner, One Technology, takes care of all the back end, make sure things stay up online, make sure that the fraud prevention and all the things we've put in place is working as advertised. But more importantly today, I want to thank the 5.7 million podcast listeners that participated this year in nominating and voting for the shows. It is absolutely incredible to think that that many listeners came and reviewed the thousands of shows that chose to participate in the Podcast Awards, where we ended up with 300 incredibly talented shows that made the final slate. Tonight, we're definitely here to honor the top 30 shows that will win in their categories. But more importantly, I want to congratulate all 300 shows for making the slate. It is a very, very difficult process just to get into the final 300. So again, congratulations to them. This award ceremony and running this awards would not be possible without sponsors and also the registration fees that podcasters pay to participate. I want to take a moment and recognize the sponsors and some of the other folks that help us in promoting the Podcast Awards. First up is the Pan Am Podcast. I want to thank you for their stepping up and supporting the awards. At the same time, Spiritual Phyllis O'Chatter with the Joneses as well. In Your Mouth and Future Hindsight. Those shows all can be found on the sidebar at podcastawards.com. Please visit their website. Consider subscribing to their shows. They've stepped up with their dollars to be able to support the podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. Our media partners are well. I want to recognize James Cridlin over at Pod News. Thank you so much for your ongoing support and coverage of the Podcast Awards. Of course, the New Media Show with my co-host, Rob Greenlee. We also give credit to the founder, which is, of course, me. It's a little founder's credit. Definitely check my show out at geeknewscentral.com. And, of course, if you're interested in becoming a podcaster, go over to blueberry.com, start your free trial. My tech team is there to help you get started. Consider becoming a podcaster today. So, in 2021, we had a huge expansion of the Podcast Awards. We added more categories than we have done in the lifetime of the event. We added fiction, history, leisure, true crime, Best female hosted podcast, best male hosted podcast, best black hosted podcast, best Asian hosted podcast, best podcast hosted in Spanish, and the best podcast listening platform. We also added a listener and podcaster influencer of the year. Those are submissions that are done while the podcast listener is voting. They do this through the registration process as this particular podcaster was my biggest influence over the year. And the same with podcasters and them being able to designate podcasters that are in the space that they admire and had the biggest influence on them. We'll be honoring them a little bit later tonight. It does cost money to run the Podcast Awards, approximately $800 per category. So we do have a fixed amount of expenses each year. We did raise enough money this year to make sure that every winner gets a free trophy. The 22 nominees will be able to order a trophy, and the 2017 to 2022 will be able to order extra or additional trophies if they so desire. One of the things that we have here at the Podcast Awards that is unique is something that's called the Legacy for legacy shows. If a single show wins a single category 5 times, they are forevermore not allowed to participate to win a podcast award in that specific category. The categories are then renamed in honor of their accomplishment. We have a number of shows. They're getting close to some of those cutoffs as well. But I just want to take a second and honor those shows tonight that have already become part of our legacy stack. Coverville, a pod that is now in the PodSafe music category. ESPN Fantasy Focus Football, which is in the sports category. Feast of Fools /Fun in the LGBTQ category. Free Talk Live, Politics and News category. Manager Tools in the business category. Rob Has a Podcast in the entertainment podcast. The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe for the science and medicine category. This American Life in the arts category. This Week in Tech in the technology category. WDW Radio in the travel category. The Majority Report in the politics and news category. Grammar Girl in the education category. And last year, we added the fantasy footballers in the sports category. That category next year will be renamed the Fantasy Footballers Sports category. So as new shows come on and achieve that level, we will replace the category name honoring previously legacy shows for shows that are newer in the space. Again, I want to congratulate everyone that has participated. I want to thank you for your ongoing support of the Podcast Awards. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, really, to have me stop talking, is to announce the winners. Before we do so, I want to remind you that the hashtag we want all of you to use tonight is PCA22. We have a Facebook group along with a newsletter. If you want to stay abreast of what is happening with the Podcast Awards, you can sign up at podcastawards.com. Again, congratulations to all of you that have been nominated. And again, of course, even higher congratulations to those of you that are about to be announced as winners. Again, and we'll step next into, and if I don't screw this up, we'll go through the nominees and make the announcements. First up is the arts category. The nominees are Art on the Air, Bourbon with Friends, Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a wine podcast, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, Have You Eaten Yet, Over Coffee, Sips, Suds, and Smokes, Well Read Black Girl, Whiskey Sisters Podcast. And the winner in the arts category goes to Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Congratulations.
Hey, y'all. John from Dad's Drinking Bourbon here. It is another year without Zeke in the acceptance video. We never thought we'd even win once Who would have thought that we won 4 years in a row? We just have to say thank you to every single one of you for following along our journey, for going on this ride with us, and for having a good time while you're doing it. Thank you to every single one of you. We're humbled, we're honored, and we appreciate you. Cheers.
In the Manager Tools business category, the nominees are Boss Better Now with Joe Mull, Choppin' with Fire, Extraordinary Women Radio, Hot Money, Local Leaders, the podcast, True Underdog, Video Games, Real Talk, What's Your Problem, Wickedly Smart Women, and Women of Work. And the winner in the Manager Tools business category goes to Wickedly Smart Women. Congratulations.
Hey, it's Angel B. Hartwell, the executive producer and host of the #1 internationally ranked and now 6-time, here's 5, now 6-time award-winning Wickedly Smart Women podcast. I am so grateful and honored to be able to accept this award. And I want to say thank you to our many, many guests who have helped and supported to get the show in front of our listeners in 103 countries around the world. Thank you to our listeners for downloading, rating, reviewing, and consuming our content. Thank you especially to my team behind the scenes for making it such a great show. And thank you to the Podcast Awards for giving us the opportunity once again to be winners.
Next up is the comedy category. The nominees are Absolutely Not, The Adam Sank Show, And That's Why We Drink, Doughboys, Latinos Out Loud, The A-Holes Podcast, The Film Reroll, You Up Podcast, Urban Legends with the Ghost Brothers, Yes, But Why Podcast. And the winner in the comedy category goes to And That's Why We Drink. Congratulations.
Wow, we did it, Em. We're funny. And
Award-winning comedians. Oh my God. Someone
Put
out
it
there.
on my epitaph.
Someone out there had at least one good belly roll, and that was what it took. But I'm very happy to be here. I can't believe it happened.
Can't believe it happened. Thank you so much for choosing And That's Why I Drink to win the Comedy Award. We are so proud and so honored, and we're very thankful for you. We can finally tell our parents, look, we're funny, and there's proof.
Yep, there's nothing you can say about it now. Thanks, Podcast Awards.
Thank you.
The next category is the Grammar Girl Education category, and a big shout out to Ming Young and her continued success in podcasting. The nominees are 4 Things for Your Podcast, All the Hacks, Constructing You, Curiosity Daily, Flora Funga Podcast, Food Afield Podcast, Immigrantly Podcast, Moments of Clarity with Tiffany, 2 Guys, 1 Topic, Writers and Illustrators of the Future Podcast. And the winner in the Grammar Girls Education category goes to All the Hacks. Congratulations.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much. I'm Chris Hutchins, the host of All the Hacks, and I'm so honored to be receiving the award for the education category. It makes me so happy because I started this show to educate people and help them learn how to upgrade and optimize their lives. Whether it's a new investment that increases your net worth, a new credit card that helps you rack up the points you need to take a vacation for free, or maybe it's just a routine change that boosts your productivity. No matter what it is, I look forward every week to helping you learn the strategies, the tactics, and frameworks you need to maximize your happiness and the experience of life. Of course, all while spending less and saving more. So thank you to the production team at Upfire for making this show possible, to Nancy and Peter for helping behind the scenes, to my wife for listening to almost every episode before it goes out, and to all the incredible podcasters who've shared their wisdom with me the past few years. And most of all, thank you to the People's Choice Podcast Awards for this award, and congrats to all the winners.
Next up is Rob Has a Podcast Entertainment category. The nominees are 15 Minutes with Chuck, Baby Mama's No Drama Podcast, Dead Eyes, Let's Get Haunted, Newcomers with Nicole Byer and Lauren Lupkus, Renaissance Man, The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, The Hollywood Outsider, UFO Undercover, and We Need to Talk. And the winner in the Rob Has a Podcast Entertainment category goes to Baby Mamas, No Drama Podcast. Congratulations.
Baby Mamas. Baby Mamas. I'm Kale, and this is V, and we're the host of Baby Mamas No Drama.
And we're just so grateful to be able to win this award for entertainment because we feel like we bring the entertainment.
Yeah, we do. We definitely. And if we don't, y'all do with your down in the DMs. So we appreciate you for listening, subscribing, downloading, sharing our podcast. We're so excited. We've worked so hard for this. So we appreciate every one of you.
Thank you guys, and we love you.
Next up is the fiction category. The nominees are Fear Frequency, Find Us Alive, Forever and a Day, Friends in Fiction's Writer's Block, Secrets of Harridge House, Tales to Terrify, The Magnus Archives, The West Side Fairy Tales, Horror and Dark Fiction Stories, Vampire, The Masquerade Port Saga, and When the Night Comes Out. And the winner in the fiction category goes to Tales to Terrify. Congratulations.
Good evening, fellow podcasters and podcast listeners. It's an incredible honor to be here accepting the award for Best Fiction Podcast for Tales to Terrify. We've been around for a few years now, and we've tried to keep things fresh, original, and entertaining throughout that time. So much of that credit goes to our staff, Seth Williams, Meredith Morgenstern, and Andrew Gibson, as well as all those who came before. But first and foremost, we have to thank our listeners and supporters, our children of the night. Without you, we wouldn't be doing this. We don't do this for the money or the fame. We do it because we genuinely love horror fiction podcasting, and we're so thankful to have the opportunity for the show to be recognized. Not just for ourselves, but for our writers and narrators and everyone who works on and enjoys the show. Thank you so much for selecting Tales to Terrify as Fiction Podcast of the Year.
Next up is Games and Hobbies. The nominees are Two Nerds in a Pod, a video game podcast, Captain Game Show, Hey Riddle Riddle, LAN Parties, a video gaming and esports podcast, Late to the Party, Not Another D&D Podcast, Sitcom D&D, The Film Reroll, The Reasons I'm Broke, and We'll Save the Podcast. And the winner in the Games and Hobby Podcast category go to Two Nerds in a Pod, a video game podcast. Congratulations.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to get nerdy, y'all. I had to start off with that intro because that's how we start every episode. And we're so grateful that you voted for us in the Games and Hobbies category. Listen, Two Nerds in a Pod started several years ago in a basement. So this is literally a started from the bottom, now we hear story. And we're so grateful that people have continued to support us. We're just two guys who live on different parts of the country now, besties, and we love hanging out once a week talking about games with y'all. Please continue to support independent podcasts, small creators. We're super grateful for everyone that has ever listened to our podcast or supported in any way. And shout out to everyone else who was nominated. Lots of great people were in this category, and we wish success to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it nerdy, y'all.
See ya.
This next category, government organizations, had languished in years past, and we had put the call out that we had considered dropping this category from the Podcast Awards. Over the past 2.5 to 3 years, the governments and organizations have stepped up to register in this category significantly, and I want to thank all those organizations that have participating, including the government agencies that you don't normally know have a podcast. The nominees are the Defense Intelligence Agency, Future Hindsight, Inside the FBI, Lessons Learned for Vets, Luminaries in the Dark, On a Mission, The Secret Service Podcast, Standing Post, Tango Alpha Lima, The Finer Life Show, and Transit Unplugged. The winner in the government organizations category goes to Luminaries in the Dark. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Bruce Bracken, host of the Luminaries in the Dark podcast. You know, the past couple of years of pandemic crazy town hasn't been especially wonderful for many of us, but what really inspired me were the number of people who made major changes in their lives, businesses, and organizations to address the pandemic and to help out their fellow humans and their communities. I feel very privileged that I was able to talk to these folks and share their stories with the public. So a huge thank you to them for everything they accomplished and for sharing their stories with us on the show. In addition, I want to thank my amazing audio engineer, Wendell Topper, for all of his input, expertise, and professional editing chops, and who really helped pull the interviews together. Lastly, I want to thank my parents. They are the types of people who would give the shirts off their back to help others in trouble or in need. They were the inspiration for me to get started on this podcast. I hope I honored them with it. And, of course, speaking of feeling honored, I feel extremely honored to win this podcast award. I'm grateful to have been nominated. It is very special and meaningful to take the award home. Thank you very, very much.
The next category up is health. The nominees are A Winning Mindset, Beyond the Paper Gown, Diabetes Connections, Eat, Move, Think, Happy Being Well, Mental, the podcast to destigmatize mental health, Mind Love, Moments of Clarity with Tiffany, Sober Awkward, the Good Clean Nutrition Podcast. And the winner in the health category goes to Mental, the podcast to destigmatize mental health. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Bobby Temps, host of Mental, the podcast to destigmatize mental health. And I'm here to say a massive thank you to the People's Choice Podcast Awards, to everyone that voted for us, to Todd for organising it, to my producer Pete for protecting me from just how many times I say and forget what I'm saying on the mic. It means so much to win this award. It's such a privilege. We've got last year's one right here, and so to be recognised again really means the world. So thank you for all of that. This kind of recognition just really helps keep the show on the road, very literally, keeps us doing the anti-stigma work that we care about so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Next up is the history category. The nominees are Based on a True Story, Cautionary Tales, Earth Ancients, Fresh Hell Podcast, History of the 90s, Intertwined, the enslaved community at George Washington's Mount Vernon, Malicious Life, Plotting Through the Presidents, Skeptoid, the Pan Am Podcast. And the winner in the history category is Fresh Hell Podcast. Congratulations.
Hello from Boston, Massachusetts.
And hello from Austria. This is an absolute dream come true. I was hoping so much to win the history category. We have history in all of our episodes, but I think the ones that are heavily loaded with history, like the Habsburg tragedies, the Mutiny on the Bounty, or the medieval torture one, they are my absolute favorites. We are so beyond thankful to all of our listeners who voted for us, and I'm also thankful to my history teachers in school.
Definitely. We have the best listeners. We really appreciate you, and we just love to meet with you every week to discuss the darkest moments in world history. Yes. We also really want to thank Todd for beautifully organizing this very complicated event every year. And thank you to the committee of voters who chose us from such an incredibly talented field of nominees. Also, thank you to our families for helping us and putting up with us while all we do is talk about terrible history.
That's true. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Next up is Kids and Family. The nominees are Dad Up Podcast, Fairy Tales with Granny McDuff, Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls, Good Night World, Hold Me Back, Maximize Minimalist Podcast, New Mommy at 40, The Southern Tea Podcast, Tumble Science Podcast for Kids, and Who Smarted. And the winner And the kids and family category goes to the Southern Tea Podcast. Congratulations.
Hello, Tea Spillers. I just wanted to hop on here and just say thank you so much for all of your support on my solo project, the Southern Tea Podcast. I feel so thankful and blessed that all of you tune in each and every week. I want to thank a couple of people. One of those is my co-host of Coffee Convos podcast and my first baby, my parents, Todd and Julie Chrisley, my siblings, my son Jackson, my boyfriend, Suburban Dad, and my ex-husband. They give me such great content to run with every single week, and I am so thankful for them. Thank you guys so much. I am so excited, and I hope you guys have a great night.
Up next, the leisure category. The nominees are Two Nerds in a Pod, a video game podcast, Beyond the Wheel podcast, Book Interrupted, Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Drum Fine Podcast, Food Network Obsessed, Rough Talk VR, So and So, The No with Nikki Spo, The Wonderful World of Wine, WWW. And the winner in the leisure category goes to Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Congratulations.
Hey, y'all, John from Dad's Drinking Bourbon here. It's another year without Zeke doing these videos with us, but he doesn't edit, and he really, embodies this category of leisure. That's what he does. That's what he's best at. So it's only fitting. I put in for this one just for him, so it's only fitting that he wins. Thank you to everyone who voted for us and listened and whatever you have done to help over the past year. We're really appreciative of all of you. And we love you all. Thank you so much. And come have a bourbon with us if you're in Nashville. Cheers.
Next up is the Feast of Fools Fun LGBTQ category. And as of note, we've had this category in the Podcast Awards since 2005. Even in the early days of podcasting, inclusiveness was a big thing in podcasting. Today, podcasting is done by every variety of individuals on the planet. Can't be more proud to see the podcasting space be as diverse as it is. Tonight, the nominees for the LGBTQ category are An Older Gay Guy Show, Derek and Romaine, Drag Her, a RuPaul Drag Race podcast, Gay Men Going Deeper, Gaysh, Getting Juicy with Rachel and Hero, Hard to Swallow podcast, Hello from the Hollywoods, If These Ovaries Could Talk, Say Yas to the Guest, and the winner in the Feast of Fools Fun LGBT category goes to Derek and Romaine. Congratulations.
So Derek, I hear we have another award to add to our collection.
Finally, we haven't won in this LGBTQ category since 2020, but we do have 3 of these bad boys already.
But we got a new one to add to the collection.
I'm sorry, these 3 bad non-gender specific awards. So
yeah.
Thank you for these. We're so glad to add another one to our mantle, and now we are only one away from this award being named after us. And if you think we're unbearable now, we're only going to get worse. So thank you to all of you who voted for us.
Yes, thank you to everyone at the Podcast Awards for making these awards possible. We certainly are honored to represent the LGBTQ community and to be the very best podcast that we can be.
I got nothing more to say. Thank you.
Next up is the Coverville PodSafe Music category. The nominees are 15 Minutes with Chuck, Broken Records, Cattails, Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, Loud Radio, the Music Podcast, Music Rewind Podcast, Stay Human, Super Awesome Mix, We Are the Road Crew Podcast, and We Buy Records. And the winner in the Coverville PodSafe Music category goes to Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. And before I turn the video over to the winner, I would just want to say this show's been around a long time. congratulations for the longevity of doing your podcast. This is an old school, long time podcaster. Greatly deserved. Congratulations.
Greetings, and thank you so much for voting for the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast for Best Podsafe Music. I really appreciate it. This show's been going since 2005, and it's still going as strong as ever. And I am grateful to all the support from all of our fans around the world, everywhere from Antarctica to the United States to Australia, Germany, everywhere. It's just everywhere, and I really appreciate everyone and all the bands who keep submitting music to the podcast after so many years, and I'm really extremely grateful. I want to send out a big thanks to Mitchell Peterson, who does my audio engineering. A huge thanks to Miranda Nelson, who does my graphics, and of course, wonderful thanks to my family, my wife Gwen, and my kids who help me keep creating music, who are a part of it. Thank you so much, Sláinte.
Next up is the Majority Report News and Politics category. The nominees are Baffled with David DeRoches, Best of the Left podcast, Centralist, Curious Realm, Fake the Nation, Mr. Throwback Thursday, Outlaw Lawyer, Sidebar by Courthouse News, The Global Brief, and The Problem with Jon Stewart. And the winner in the Majority Report News and Politics category goes to Fake the Nation. Congratulations.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to say thank you so much for making Fake the Nation your best political podcast. Sometimes when you're making a podcast, it can feel like you're just like talking into the void, especially if it's a podcast that's geared towards politics and social good. So to find out that people are actually listening and that some people even think you're doing a good job is just rewarding beyond anything I can describe. So thank you so much. I also want to thank everyone at HeadGum who made this a possibility, and I want to thank my parents who just made me a very generally chatty person. So that's really helped. So thank you so much.
Next up is the Religion and Spirituality category. The nominees: A Fistful Podcast, Dualistic Unity, Everything Happens, Faithful Politics Podcast, Good Christian Fun, How to Tickle Yourself, Know Your Aura, Moon Matters Podcast, Psychic Matters, and Rainbow Rising. And the winner in the Religion and Spirituality category goes to How to Tickle Yourself. Congratulations.
Oh my God, this is wonderful, unexpected, and completely wonderful.
Absolutely wonderful. I am over the moon.
When we set out to do this podcast, we started with a goal of trying to find the tickle of existence, how to tickle yourself, find that way to find the delight, everyday delight in the fact that any of this is even happening at all. We thank everyone at Storic who put this together for us, who helped put it together: Chuck LaBella, Kristen Verbitsky, Andrew Steiner, Oscar Desidero, and everyone else over there. We want to thank our guests who have joined us week in, week out. And we also want to thank some of our MVP listeners, right?
Oh, yeah. We've got some longtime listeners. There's Pat McDonald, Shauna McPherson. We've got some great family support, everybody who's been listening from the beginning.
Betty McKeon is a huge supporter. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Odie, Richard Odumodu from across the pond for all the input.
He runs our international fan club. So thank you, Richard, for that. Thank you, Leslie Mooney, for your consistent listening and support. Thank you, everyone. We can't believe that this happened.
Thank you.
Next up is a Skeptic's Guide Science and Medicine category. The nominees are Behavioral Grooves, Chats with the Chatfields, Curiosity Daily, DNA Today, Field Tripping, On the Evidence, Politics and Life Sciences, Space Journey, The Dr. Denise Show, and The Happiness Lab. And the winner in the Skeptic's Guide Science and Medicine category goes to DNA Today. Congratulations.
Wow. Thank you, listeners, so much. What an honor to defend our title for the third year in a row. And it's perfect timing because this month we just hit a decade of DNA Today and we produced 200 episodes. So it's such a special time. For those that don't know, DNA Today explores how genetics affects our health through interviews with leaders in the field. We were ecstatic to have on 2 celebrities with genetic conditions that shared their experience, including Glee actress Lauren Potter and the middle actor Atticus Shaffer. We explored so many different types of genetic conditions and topics, including nanorare diseases, the completion of the Human Genome Project, whole genome sequencing, prenatal genetic screening, cancer, cardio, neuro, so many topics. Our show would not be possible without our sponsors, so I wanted to shout out a few of them: PerkinElmer Genomics, No Rare, Phenotypes, Connect My Variant, Picture Genetics, Blueprint Genetics, Sarah Lawrence College, Johns Hopkins, Phage Genomics, Allelica, Aceragen, PETA, TrackGene, Keck Graduate Institute, and VizGen. Also a huge shout out to my team, Corinne, Amanda, Kajal, Sanha, Ash, Megha, and a thanks to the Podcast Awards and Todd Cochran. I'm still fangirling over meeting you this year. Thank you so much for hosting the PCAs every year and really pulling our podcast community together. So thank you so much.
Next up is the Society and Culture category. The nominees are Abolition is for Everybody, Baby Mama's No Drama Podcast, Brain Candy Podcast, Coffee Combos Podcast, Dead Eyes, Disney World and Beyond with the Gold Key Adventure Society, Hold Me Back, Letter to My Ex, Moments of Clarity with Tiffany, and Monsters Among Us Podcast. And the winner in the Society and Culture category goes to Monsters Among Us Podcast. Congratulations.
I can't believe you lunatics voted for me again. I do appreciate it, though. I can't tell you how much I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time not only to listen to the show, but to share it, to tell friends, to call in your stories, but more importantly, to vote. And a huge thanks to the People's Choice Podcast Awards for having me back again another year. Thanks, guys.
Love that studio view. Next up is the ESPN Fantasy Focus Football Sports category. The nominees are A Winning Mindset, Cover 3 College Football, ESPN Daily, Fantasy Baseball Today, Fantasy Football Today, Game Face, In Soccer We Trust, a U.S. soccer podcast, Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, Pick 6 NFL, and The First Cut Golf. And the winner in the ESPN Fantasy Focus Football Sports category goes to Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. Congratulations.
Oh my God, it happened again, Luke Thomas. The votes are in. Morning Combat is the ESPN Fantasy Focus Sports category's best podcast from the People's Choice. That's what I'm talking about.
I can't believe it. I am shocked we even got nominated. Even more shocked that we won. But I got to tell you, man, I really enjoy doing this job. I enjoy doing this job with you. I think we're lucky, and we're lucky that CBS and Showtime and everyone else put us in this position to do these kinds of things. So thanks to everyone who voted for us. Thanks for the nomination. And dude, like I said before, lucky, very lucky to be in this spot. I know you feel the same.
Yeah, we may be covering niche sports on this podcast, but this is anything but niche. We took down football, basketball, cricket, curling, whatever your favorite sport is. Your new favorite show is Morning Combat.
Next up is This Week in Technology category. The nominees are Afternoon Cyber Tea with Ann Johnson, Barcode, Beyond Rent, Code Story, GNC Week in Review, Malicious Life, Microsoft Stories, Remote Space, Security Unlocked, and Talking Sound. And the winner in the This Week in Technology category goes to Malicious Life. Congratulations.
Hi, folks. It's Ran Levy here, host of Malicious Life, and we're all absolutely thrilled that our
podcast won the technology category of the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The past 5 years since we started Malicious Life have been a wild ride. We got to meet so many interesting people from the cybersecurity community, record interviews and conferences, and I even got to interview Steve Wozniak, my personal idol. So first and foremost, a big thank you to our fantastic community of listeners, which is spread all over the world, from US to China and from Kenya to Norway. Another big thank you to Cybereason, our sponsor, a company who really cares about helping the community and creating great content. Anthony is our contact person in Cybereason. Hi, Anthony.
Hello, everybody.
Lastly, the real heroes behind the scenes, the team here in PI Media. Hadas Drucker, who runs our social media.
Hi.
Yotam Alachmi, who does the amazing sound design of the show.
Hello.
Nate Nielsen, our senior producer, editor, and writer, who's not here with us today. And lastly, Danny Timor, my co-founder of PI Media.
Hello.
So thank you to the People's Choice Podcast Awards for this great honor. Here's to the next great 5 years of Malicious Life. Cheers.
Hang on.
The next category up is storyteller and drama. The nominees are Bronte, Fear Frequency, Makeshift Stories Original Science Fiction, No Latency, One More Term, Real Life, Real Crime, Small Town Dicks, Stories with Sapphire, Weird Darkness, Writers and Illustrators of the Future Podcast. And the winner in the Storyteller and Drama Podcast goes to Real Life, Real Crime. Congratulations.
What's up, y'all? It's Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And we just won for the second time People's Choice Podcast of the Year Award for Drama and Storytelling. Blessed. That's all I can say. Blessed. Who knew people want to listen to this old cop tell stories, right? It's crazy. All my fans, lifers, I love you. Thank you for sharing and telling everybody about Real Life, Real Crime. I appreciate you so much. And Patreon and Convicts, thank you for supporting the show. Thank all of y'all for voting, taking the time to go out there and give me the recognition. It means the world to me. Got to give a shout out to my producer, Jim Chapman, and Vision Podcast Studios. I love you, bro. Thank you so much for taking Real Life, Real Crime to the next level. My beautiful bride, Cindy. Thank you, baby, for supporting me every day. And my kids, my parents, and my friends who put up with my craziness and all the Woodyisms and the way I am. Thank y'all. People's Choice, Best Drama and Storytelling 2022. Thank you. We won in 2019. We did it again this year because of y'all. I love you. I thank you, and I appreciate you so much. Peace.
Next up, True Crime. The nominees are And That's Why We Drink, Big Mad True Crime, Fresh Hell Podcast, Judgy Crime Girls, Mind of a Monster, Murder in the Rain, Real Life, Real Crime, Small Town Dicks, True Crime Daily, and Weird Darkness. And the winner in the True Crime category, taking 2 in a row, is Real Life, Real Crime. Congratulations.
Hey, y'all, it's Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And we just won Best True Crime Podcast in the world. It's amazing, people. Give a shout out to all my lifers, all my fans. Y'all built this up from day one, telling your mamas, sisters, brothers, plumber about us. And that's how we've been growing. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. I wouldn't have a show if it wasn't for you. Thank you, lifers, Patreon, Convicts. We love y'all. Best true crime podcast in the world. Got to give a shout out to my producer, Jim Chapman and Vision Podcast Studios. Thank you, brother, for taking us to the next level. Love you. Shout out to my beautiful bride, Cindy, and my kids, my parents, and all my friends who stand by me every day dealing with all my craziness. It's just such a blessing. I love y'all. I'm doing it because of y'all, because you took the time to vote, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. People's Choice, Best True Crime Podcast in the world, 2022. Real Life, Real Crime, baby. Peace.
Next up is TV and film. The nominees are Girl Crush Podcast, Laker Jim's Fletch Cast, Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast. She's All Bach. The Blacklisted Exposed. The Film Reroll. The Friendship Onion. Too Scary? Didn't watch. 2 Sentence Horror Stories. The official podcast. What should I watch? And the winner in the TV and film category goes to Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast. Congratulations.
Today on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, we won for the second time in a row. I don't know how it happened. They like us. They really like us.
I was going to say that. I'm so excited.
We appreciate you so much. All the people out there in the Stranded Panda Network community that listen to all the shows and have supported the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast for all these many years and have voted us in a second time. Thank you so, so much.
It was a shocking honor to be nominated a second time, and then to win again is just bonkers. Like, Are we consistently liked now? Does that mean that people like us?
No.
It wasn't just a fluke.
No,
People really like us.
That's the
Huge
shocking
thank you
part.
to the fans. I mean, I was not ready to give up my crown.
Yeah. Believe us, we would have never heard the end of it if Ashley had to give up her crown.
No.
Yeah.
Proves, the fans are with us and the listeners have stuck with us for all these years. Now we're going on 2 years of having this award, and it's just, it's amazing.
Big thanks to Marvel. Big thanks to the Stranded Panda community. Like, I'm shocked. I feel shocked.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Podcast Awards. Thank you to all the listeners. And thank you to Marvel. Yeah. Peace.
Until next time, true believers.
Bye.
Next up is the best podcast listening platform. This is a unique category. This was designed to see where loyalties laid in podcast listening in the podcasting space. The nominees are Amazon Podcast, Apple Podcast, Blueberry Podcast Directory, Italian Wine Podcast, the Overcast Podcast app, the Pocket Cast Podcast app, the Rebel Girls app, and Spotify. And the winner, by a significant majority, Apple Podcast. Congratulations. Next up is the best podcast hosted in Spanish. The nominees are
Despierta tus finanzas.
Dragamala Podcast.
El poder de la música. Guerreros del corazón. La abuela de las 3 guerras. La Segunda Guerra Mundial. Eventos, personajes, tecnología.
The Rick H. Show.
and the winner in the best podcast hosted in Spanish goes to
El ganador en el mejor podcast alojado en español es La abuela de las 3 guerras.
Congratulations.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much for this award. That's the only thing I can say. Thank you to my family and my friends for being there, making this possible. Thank you to Europod, Boom Media, and Sfera for all the support. And thank you to all the people who have voted, because this wouldn't be possible without them. Thank you so much for taking the time of voting and voting for my podcast. I'm really excited, and I'm also really excited that La Abuela de las Tres Guerras is going to be translated to other languages so more people can listen to it. I think it's a really powerful story. I think it teaches so much about our past, and I think it's important to learn from it so we don't make the same mistakes again. So thank you so much, and yeah, that's it. Muchísimas gracias.
Next up is the best Black hosted podcast. The nominees are All Things Covered with Patrick Peterson and Brian McFadden, Amazing Women and Men of Power, Interstates and Heartbreak, Mass Debaters, Renaissance Man, The Sky is the Limit Beyond the Deal, 3 Black Halflings, Urban Legends with the Ghost Brothers, We Used to Talk About This at Work, XOXO, Gossip Kings, with Carl Tart and Lamar Woods. And the winner and the best Black hosted podcast goes to Urban Legends with the Ghost Brothers. Congratulations.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Dalen Spratt, 1/3 of the Ghost Brothers. And we just want to give a huge thank you to all of our supporters, our friends, our family members, everyone at the network, and everyone that just put us in a position to even be nominated for Best Black Hosted Podcast. It's like, I didn't even know that was a thing, but that is super dope, man. And we wear our crowns proudly. Thank you so much, guys. And if you keep listening, we gonna keep talking. Love you.
Next up is the Best Asian Hosted Podcast. The nominees are American Building Podcast with Atif Kadir, ESPN Daily, Fake the Nation, Ghost Maps, True Southeast Asian Horror Stories, Girish Bali, Immigri Podcast, Proudly Asian, Stories with Sapphire, The Banh Mi Chronicles, Tuckered Out with Amy Thacker, and the winner. And the Best Asian Hosted Podcast goes to Ghost Maps, True Southeast Asian Horror Stories. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Kyle Ong, the executive producer and co-creator of Ghost Maps.
Hi, I'm Wayne Ray. I'm the writer and co-creator of Ghost Maps.
First of all, we would like to say that we are extremely humble and grateful for the Best Asian Hosted Podcast Award. This is something that we truly didn't expect after 3 years of doing this horror stories. It is truly an honor to represent not only Asian podcasters, but also Southeast Asian podcasters in our region.
The supernatural is a huge part of our culture here in Southeast Asia. It's part of our identity. It informs who we are.
I would like to thank my friends and family for always supporting my career choice as a horror podcaster, and my wife and my support and my everything, Jolene, for being my muse, for giving me inspiration, and also being the design brain behind the Ghost Maps album art.
Thank you so much to our friends. Thank you so much to my family as well. Specifically, I just want to shout out to Nadia. Thank you for being you, and thank you for being you with me. And finally, we want to thank a group of people who are just as important to Ghost Maps as the crew behind it, the fans. We couldn't have done it without you guys. We're here because of you guys, and we'll continue to be here because of you guys.
And thank you to the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
The next two categories, Best Male and Best Female Hosted Podcast, are highly, highly competitive. Each of these categories getting literally millions of nomination votes. The nominees are Best Male Hosted Podcast, Do What You Like, Fantasy Football Today, If I Were You, Language of Bromance, Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, Real Life, Real Crime, The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, The Minds of Madness, The Problem with Jon Stewart, XOXO, Gossip Kings with Carl Tart and Lamar Woods. And the winner, and the Best Male Hosted Podcast, goes to Real Life, Real Crime. Congratulations.
Hey, y'all, it's Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And boom, guess what? We did it again. We just won Best Male Host of the Year, People's Choice Award, just like we did it in 2021, thanks to you lifers. Wow, what an honor. Blessed beyond recognition. Can't count the blessings. My fans, I love each and every one of you. Patreon, convicts, lifers, I love you. I wouldn't have a show if it wasn't for you. You bless me every day. I'm so thankful and thank God and Jesus for blessing us with this award also. Got to give a shout out to my producer, Jim Chapman with Envision Podcast Studios. Thank you, brother. I love you. Thank you for taking us to the next level. Shout out to my beautiful bride, Cindy, and my kids and my parents and my friends who put up with me all the time and for my craziness, right? Boom, y'all. We've won it 2 times in a row now. Best male host in the world. What do you say about that? Love it, love it, love it. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. Thank you so much. Real Life, Real Crime. Stick with us, baby. We're going places. Love y'all. Peace.
Next up is the Best Female Hosted Podcast category. The nominees are 4 Things for Your Podcast, Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast, Baby Mamas, No Drama Podcast, Big Mad True Crime, Coffee and Cases, a true crime podcast, Fresh Hell Podcast, Maximize Minimalist Podcast, Newcomers with Nicole Byer and Lauren Lucas, She's All Bach, and Whiskey Sisters Podcast. And the winner and the best female hosted podcast goes to Fresh Hell Podcast. Congratulations.
Hi from Austria. Hi from the US. We are incredibly excited to have defended our win from last year, especially among the incredibly talented shows we were nominated with.
Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to vote for us in this category. And thank you to Todd, who really does such a great job making this whole awards possible and taking care that everything runs smoothly. Thank you. We are beyond grateful, really.
Really. And thank you to our listeners. And thank you to you, Johanna, for your absolutely magical editing skills, even though we are on different continents and have never met in real life.
Never.
Never. Thank you so much. This is so exciting. Keep going. Bye.
The next two categories are really designed and have been put together essentially a way for us to find out via really a write-in type of ballot who podcasters and listeners think are the most have the most influence on them. A podcast does not have to register to be part of this particular category. It's truly the ability of the listener and the podcaster say, this who has influenced me the most over the past year. It's really, we go through a lot of work to basically pull these down and really figure out who the top 5. And oftentimes it's partners. It's people that are doing a show together or doing something together. And so this year's no different. So it's more than 5 individuals. But I want to give a big congratulations to everyone that has made our Influencer of the Year. So first up, we're going to talk about the 2022 Listener Influencer of the Year. Our winners are Heather Ashley, A Big Mad True Crime, Kale Laurie, and V. Riviera, A Baby Mama's No Drama Podcast, Jorge Rodriguez from La Segunda, Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell from Morning Combat, and Woody Overton for Real Life, Real Crime. Congratulations to those that are our 2022 Listener Influencers of the Year. Next is our Podcast Listener Influencers of the Year. They are Adam Iser from CBS Sports, Adam Curry and Dave Jones of Podcasting 2.0, Elsie Escobar and Jessica Kupferman of She Podcast, Kale Laurie and V. Riviera from Baby Mama's No Drama Podcast, and Malcolm Gladwell from Revisionist History. Congratulations to these podcasters for being a major influence in the podcasting space and influencing listeners and podcasters alike. Our next category is the People's Choice Podcast Awards category. This is the category that every podcaster that enters to be part of the Podcast Awards, that registers to participate, is automatically entered into this category. The competition in this category is incredible. Oftentimes, the spread between the winner and the person in second or third or fourth place is literally mere number of votes. We're very, very happy to be able to announce the Adam Curry's People's Choice Podcast Awards. And more importantly, Adam Curry is a podfather of podcasting. If he had not worked with Dave Weiner in the early days of podcasting, we would not be doing these awards today. And I think the podcasting space may not exist or be different. So thank goodness for what was the ground that was laid in the past for where we are today. And with that, I'll announce our nominees. The nominees and the Adam Curry. I got to make sure I get my thing here. Yep. The nominees are, and that's Why We Drink, Baby Mama's No Drama Podcast, Big Mad True Crime, Derek and Romaine, Fantasy Football Today, Fresh Hell Podcast, Hey Riddle Riddle, Monsters Among Us Podcast, Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, and Real Life, Real Crime. I give a big People's Choice Podcast Awards congratulations to Baby Mamas No Dramas Podcast. Congratulations.
Okay, Baby Mamas!
Baby Mamas!
I'm Kale.
And I'm V. Rivera.
We're the hosts of Baby Mamas No Drama Podcast, and we're so thankful, we're so honored to have been nominated and picked for People's Choice Awards.
And we're so grateful. We're thankful for every download, every review, every subscription. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys.
Yes, so thank you so much.
We love you guys.
I want to thank all of you, and congratulations to everyone. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Podcast Awards. Make sure you're using the hashtag PCA 2022 or 22, PCA 22. Make sure you get signed up for our newsletter so you are informed when registration opens for the 18th annual People's Choice Podcast Awards. I do again want to thank all of our podcast sponsors and our supporters for helping the podcast. We get a massive amount of traffic to this website. So even if you did not win tonight, your podcast will be on the front of the website for many months to come until we reset the website in late May of 2023. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Todd Cochran, and we appreciate all of your support. I want to thank each and every one of you for your attendance tonight. Make sure you push this on social media. Let people know about the awards. And again, congratulations to all. A good evening from Coldwater, Michigan. Congratulations to all. We'll see you next year here at the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Take care.